This is the new Dell XPS 159570, although you wouldn't know it just by looking at it. It's virtually identical to last year's model, and the year before that. The only real design changes are a more subtly embossed Dell logo, a slightly lighter, more silvery colour, a repositioned webcam now in the centre of the bottom bezel, and the fingerprint reader built into the power button. So design-wise, not much has changed, but I don't really mind. It's still a beautiful looking laptop, especially if you go for the 4K model, as you get a flush bezel and edge-to-edge Gorilla Glass. The ridiculously thin bezels mean this is still one of the most compact 15.6-inch laptops you can buy. And next to the brand new Asus ZenBook Pro 15, there's a classy, understated style to the XPS that I really like, with its aluminium chassis and carbon fiber palm rest, which looks great for about 5 minutes, until sweat, grease and dirt starts to discolor it. It's fairly easy to wipe off, but it does take away a little bit from the overall fit and finish. The port selection is the same as last time too, but it still offers everything I need, with 2 USB 3 ports, 1 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C, a full-size SD card reader, HDMI 2.0, headphone jack and power connector. It weighs the same as before as well. If you go for the 57 watt-hour battery model, it comes in at about 1.8 kilograms, although if you want decent battery life, I'd avoid that one. So this one here I've got with the 97 watt-hour battery tips the scales at 2 kilograms, which is about 4.4 pounds. I've got the top spec model here with the 4K display, 8th gen Intel Core i9-8950HK processor, 32 gigs of RAM, a 1TB SSD, and a GTX 1050 Ti Max-Q graphics card. And all that will set you back a whopping £2,600 or around $2,400. But the XPS 15 does start from just $999 in the US, although I would avoid the entry-level US model as that uses a slower hard drive rather than SSD. The good news though is that all models, except for the super entry-level model in the US, come with the GTX 1050 Ti graphics card. Although it is the Max-Q version, which means it's slightly underclocked and about 10 to 15% slower than a normal 1050 Ti. So let's talk performance. Just how fast is this thing, and does the new 6-core processors and the 1050 Ti Max-Q graphics card really make a big difference to speed and performance versus last year's model? Well, according to Cinebench, it is a solid step up. We're looking at a 46% faster CPU and 22% faster GPU. Although to be fair, this model I've got here has 32 gigs of RAM versus 16 gigs on last year's model. Plus I'm using the more powerful i9 rather than i7 processor. So that's benchmarks, but what about real world performance? Well, as a full-time YouTuber, a video producer, being able to comfortably edit 4K and 4K 60 video on this is really important. Subjectively, the new XPS 15 does feel faster in the Premiere Pro timeline. Playback of 4K 60 footage seems smoother, and while it's still far from flawless, especially if you have multiple 4K video sources, it does feel like a noticeable step up in power. And the render times back this up. A 5-minute 4K video took 12 minutes and 15 seconds to export on last year's XPS 15 9560, whereas the new 9570 took 10 minutes and 20 seconds. But whether shaving off a couple of minutes off a render time is a big deal, well, that's up to you. It's a pretty capable gaming machine too. You'll definitely want to drop the resolution to 1080p if you opt for the 4K model though to get playable frame rates. But in Far Cry 5 with high settings at Full HD, it averaged 45 FPS. That's up from 37 FPS on last year's 9560. Rise of the Tomb Raider averaged 47 FPS with the same settings, which is 6 FPS more than the older model. So it'll easily handle Full HD gaming, and if you tweak a few graphics options here and there, you should get a stable 60 FPS in most modern games at medium to high settings. So overall, it is definitely a step up in terms of performance, but probably not enough to make you throw away last year's model and run out and buy the new one. I am happy to report though that even under load, it never got uncomfortably hot or even loud. You can definitely hear the fan whir up, but it's no louder than last year, and despite the more powerful hardware, it's definitely not too loud, and I didn't hear any coil whine on my particular model. But there's way more to this laptop than just the speed. The display has been improved too. As you can see, I've got the glossy 4K touchscreen option here, as it covers 100% of the sRGB and 98% of the Adobe RGB color gamuts. So it's sharp and super color accurate, which is ideal for me when I'm editing photos and video. The downsides are it's more expensive, it is still glossy, and the 4K res does have a big impact on your battery life. But the good news is Dell have added a new anti-reflective coating, meaning it's far less reflective than the older models. Still, battery life is the main trade-off here for the better looking screen. I'm getting around 5.5 hours of normal use out of it. An hour of YouTube at 50% brightness used 18% of the battery. I haven't tested the full HD version of the new model, but I would expect you to get around 8 to 9 hours on that one. Personally, I would go for the 4K option if you can afford it. It makes the laptop look a lot nicer with that flush bezel and the Gorilla Glass. It's touchscreen, much sharper, and far more color accurate. So yes, you are losing battery life, and it's a little glossy, but if you can, I would go 4K. Now, if you are going to be using this to watch lots of videos and movies or listen to music, you'll be pleased to hear that the speakers are actually really good. You get dual 2-watt Waves Max Audio Pro speakers. The speakers are loud, clear, and have a nice little punch to them. I'm also a big fan of the keyboard and the touchpad on this laptop. Unlike the XPS 15 2-in-1, which came out earlier this year and used Dell's new maglev keys, which felt like the clacky, shallow keys you get on the MacBook Pro, this XPS 15 uses the same keyboard as last year, and it's awesome. Definitely one of the best typing experiences you can get on a Windows laptop. The Precision Touchpad is the same as well, and again, I have zero complaints. It's incredibly precise and responsive, gestures work well, and the smooth glass surface feels lovely to use. But just like the previous models, the webcam is still on the bottom bezel, although now it's in the center, which means you're looking at both my nostrils, not just the one on the left. And so if you're going to do Skype calls, video conferencing, and maybe you want to take some notes, you're also going to see the top of your knuckles like that, which isn't ideal. So for me, the XPS 15 9570 is as close to being the perfect laptop as they come, but of course, nothing is perfect. And I do have a couple of little complaints about it. As I say, the webcam placement isn't ideal, battery life on the 4K model is acceptable at 5 or 6 hours, but not great, and I've had a couple of other small quirky issues with it. Every now and then, it simply can't find any Wi-Fi networks. It's really odd. Turning Wi-Fi on and off doesn't seem to fix it, so you actually have to go into the settings and run the troubleshooter, which seems to reset the Wi-Fi and then does fix the problem. In the 2 weeks I've had the laptop, it's happened 3 times, which isn't ideal, but it does only take a second to fix. I've also taken it out of my bag a couple of times, only to find that it's really hot and the fan's whirring away, as if it didn't go to sleep properly when I closed the lid. I have to admit, it does feel a bit like a lottery when buying from Dell when it comes to their QA and whether you have these random quirky issues, but I guess if you do have anything major wrong with it, you can just return it, replace it, or cancel your order. And I wouldn't let it stop you buying what I think is the best laptop on the market right now. It does have some strong competition from the Gigabyte Aero 15X, the Asus ZenBook Pro, MSI GS65, and of course the MacBook Pro, but out of all of them, personally, I'd still go with the Dell. It's powerful, portable, good-looking, lovely to use, and does everything I need for 4K video editing, full HD gaming, and, well, anything else you want to do on your laptop. So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a new laptop, and I've put links in the description if you want to check it out. So that's what I think, but what do you reckon? Do you think it's a decent upgrade? Would you spend the money on the new XPS? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Click that like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chap. I'm easily pleased. See you next time.